In this video, we are going to be going over how to find centroids of different sections. So, to start out, let's just go over a little bit what a centroid is. So, if we have a rectangle, the centroid is going to be the point inside that shape where the area on all sides of that shape is balanced. So this area here equals this area equals this area equals this area. So if you were to cut this shape out from the page and balance your finger where that point is, then that shape is going to be perfectly balanced on your finger. It's not going to tip to one side or the other. It's going to stay perfectly level. That's what the centroid is. So it's really easy to see in shapes like rectangles or squares because those are symmetric shapes. But let's say we've got a shape that looks something like that. Then how are you going to be able to find the centroid of that shape when you can't just look at it and evenly balance the different areas? Well, what you can do is break this shape down into familiar shapes, and then you can use those and add those centroids together. So, what we're going to do, let's just go ahead and continue with this shape here. Let's add some dimensions, and we'll turn this here into an example. Let's make that 4 feet. If we dimension this side over here, let's make this 2 feet and 1 foot and 1 foot. And we'll make this 1 foot and this 3 feet. All right. So if we have that, and we need to find the centroid of this shape. So we're going to have to find, the centroid is going to have an X and Y component. And when we're talking about centroids, we usually put bars above them, and that just indicates that that's the centroid. So we've got to find X bar and we've got to find Y bar. And so the equation for both of those, X bar is going to equal the sum of the areas times their individual X bars, which we indicate as X tilde. Tilde is that little squiggly line above the X, divided by the sum of the areas of each shape. As you can see from this equation, the sum of areas are going to cancel out, and we're just going to be left with an X bar distance total. So, like I said, this is going to be area of shape 1 times the individual X bar of shape 1 plus area of shape 2 times the X bar of shape 2 plus area of shape 3 times the X bar of shape 3, until you reach however many shapes that you have, all divided by the sum of the areas, A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus AN, again for the total number of shapes that you have. And that is going to be similar for y bar, except instead of x tilde, we're going to have y tilde. Again, that's going to be really similar. So let's go ahead and just copy this shape down below so we don't have to scroll. And we'll go ahead and move that up in the corner here. All right. So if we've got, this is our shape and we need to find our X bar and our Y bar. Let's go ahead and, like I said, the first thing we're gonna wanna do is separate this into individual shapes that are easily recognized, and then we'll number them. So 1, 2, 3. So for our overall shape, we've got 3 different shapes within that shape. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is identify a datum, and this is where you're going to be taking all of your X bar, X tilde measurements from. I like to use the lower bottom left corner of an object because that just makes it really easy if we just establish this as our 0, 0, so our origin, like on a graph, then our whole shape is going to be in the positive quadrant, so we don't have to worry about negative coordinates, which I like to avoid negative numbers if I can. So again, we're just going to identify that as our datum so we can remember. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a table. For the different shapes. And so we're going to need to know the area of each shape, and then we're going to need to know the X tilde and the Y tilde of each shape. So for shape 1, the area is going to be just the area of that rectangle, number 1, so 3 feet times 2 feet. For a total of 6 feet squared for shape 1. For shape 2, our area is going to be the area of rectangle 2, so just base times height, so we're going to have 1 foot times 2 feet for a total of 2 feet squared for shape number 2. And then for shape number 3, the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, so 1/2 3 feet for the base, and height is 1 foot for a total of 1.5 feet squared. Now we're going to go ahead and find our X tildes for each shape. So the X tilde is going to be the X distance measured from this datum that we selected over to the centroid of that individual shape. So for a rectangle, we know that it's right in the middle. So it's going to be that distance there. Again, the distance from the datum over to the centroid of the individual shape. So in this case, our X tilde for shape 1 is going to be 3 feet divided by 2, which is going to be 1.5 feet. And then for shape 2, again, from the datum over to the centroid of that individual shape. So for shape 2, we're going to have 1 foot divided by 2, which is going to be 0.5 feet for X tilde. And then for shape 3, again, the distance from the datum over to the centroid of that individual shape. So for our rectangle, or for our triangle, we know that the centroid of a triangle is going to be 1/3 its base from the flat end. And then we've got to add on that extra distance. So this here, that's the 1/3 of 3. And then we're going to add on this 1 foot to take us back to our datum. So that's going to be a total of 2 feet. And then our y tilde is going to be the same thing as our x tilde, except in the y direction. So for shape 1, we're going to have this distance here. For shape 2, it's going to be that distance there, and then shape 3 is going to be that distance there. So, shape 1, we're going to have that total of 4 feet minus half of 2 feet. So again, it's going to be this whole 4 feet minus this half of this 2 feet right here is going to give us the rest of that distance there. And then for shape 2, we're just going to have half of its height. So that's going to be 2 feet divided by 2 is going to equal 1 foot. And if we do the math up here on shape 1, that's going to be 3 feet. And then, of course, for shape 3, we're going to have 1/3 from the flat end, so 1/3 of its height. 1/3 of 1 foot equals 0.33 feet. All right, so now we've got all of our shapes, we know all their areas, we know all their x tildes, we know all their y tildes. So now we just need to plug it into these equations here, and we'll be able to figure out our x bar and our y bar. So let's go ahead and copy this down. So that's our equation. We've got all of our values up here. So A1 is going to be 6 feet squared. X tilde 1 is going to be 1.5 feet. Plus area 2 is going to be 2 feet squared. X tilde 2 is going to be 0.5 feet. Plus area 3 is going to be 1.5 feet squared. X tilde 3 is going to be 2 feet. And we only have 3 shapes for this one, so we can end there. And that's going to be divided by the sum of the areas. So 6 feet squared plus 2 feet squared plus 1.5 feet squared. And then you can just plug that into a calculator. And you'll get that x bar equals 1.37 feet. So that means that if we started our datum and go over 1.37 feet, this is where our x coordinate is going to be located. So our centroid is going to be located somewhere along that axis. So now we can calculate y bar using similar principles that we did for x bar, except for instead of x tilde, we're going to replace it with y tildes. So area 1 is going to be 6 feet squared, and we're going to multiply that by y tilde 1, which is going to be 3 feet, plus area 2, which is 2 feet squared. Multiply that by y tilde 2, which is 1 foot. Add that to area 3, which is 1.5 feet squared. Multiply that by y tilde 3, which is 0.33 feet. And again, divide that by the sum of the area, 6 feet squared plus 2 feet squared plus 1.5 feet squared. And again, you just plug that into your calculator. And you get that equals 2.16 feet. So if we come back to our image up here, we know that our y bar is just over 2 feet, so right up in here. So our centroid lines along that axis as well. So where those cross, that's where your centroid of your shape is. And it's as simple as that. You just have to balance your different areas. If you do have any questions about this video, feel free to reach out. You can ask us your questions there, or if you want to sit down and go over this in more depth, you can head over to our tutoring page. Or if you have a different homework problem that you're getting tripped up on, and you have a specific question about that homework problem, head over to our homework help page, and we'll be able to get you help there.